It came to my attention recently that I haven't done a tag video in a really long time, and I thought it was about time I did. There's one going around at the moment called the Books I'll Probably Never Read tag, which I haven't particularly been inspired by one person at all, but it's just something that I've been seeing around, and it's quite an interesting tag. I think it's interesting to get a chance to talk about books that you don't intend to read, because obviously we talk a lot about the books that we want to read or the books that we're reading, but we don't really talk about the books that don't interest us. And I think books that people know about that don't particularly interest you are just as important to your reading and your reading tastes as the books that you do read. So I'm going to do the tag. It was originally created by Marissa at Little Spider 9, whom I will link down below, and I will be looking down because, as always, I've got the questions written down here. So, number 1, hyped book you're not interested in reading. Thinking about it, and there's probably so many books, and as soon as I filmed this they're all going to come to my mind, but thinking about it I can't think of any particularly hyped recent releases that I'm not at all interested in reading. However, I'm going to take inspiration from a conversation I had the other day and say A Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. It's not a new book by any means, but it's one that I've decided that I just really don't want to read. I'm not going to lie, I was a bit intrigued at the time, and I think books like that are quite good for proper escapism, and they're page turners, obviously they are, but the thing that mainly put me off is the fact that I think it's going to be too much like Gone Girl in terms of the plot. I don't know whether that's factual, but from what I know of the plot, it's quite Gone Girl-esque. And with Gone Girl, I was really frustrated because the writing was so strong, and there's no denying that Gillian Flynn can write really, really well, but the plot was just ludicrous. I could not get behind it. I thought it was absolutely just insane. I don't know why that was even a thing. I mean, the ending, really, really though, I literally threw the book down in just like, what? Anyway, I digress. But yes, I don't really want to read A Girl on the Train, and I might watch the film. I might do that instead, but yeah, I have no interest in reading the book. Number 2, name a series that you won't start or a series that you don't intend to finish. In terms of a series that I don't want to start, I kind of don't really want to start any at the moment, other than the ones that I already own. I've got The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear, so I intend to start those books. I've also got one of the Robin Hobb Farseer trilogy, which I also intend to start. But other than that, I don't intend to start any more series. I think I've reached a point where I just realised that series aren't for me. I actually made a video on it, which I will link down below, about why I've decided to just leave series alone, at least for the time being anyway, because I've just got past the point where there's something that interests me. I find them not necessarily too much of a commitment, but just that my reading taste changed too much from the first book to the last one, and it becomes a chore having to pick them up, not because I want to read them, but because I've read the others in the series and it would be a waste not to. I also think there are very few books that need more than one. I think a story should be able to stand on its own. Even if it's in a series, it should be able to stand fully formed and on its own. So you could argue that there's just no need for series. I don't see the point. So I'm not going to be starting any more series other than, as I say, the ones I've already got. But in terms of series that I'm not going to be finishing, there are 2 that I've actually given away this year. One being The Mortal Instruments, and one being A Series of Unfortunate Events, both of which I just didn't enjoy. I think Mortal Instruments I enjoyed to start with, and I bought a box set of the series, bar the last one I think, and I enjoyed the first 2. They were fine, like they weren't necessarily my kind of thing, but they were easy, they were enjoyable. They were just break reads for me really, in between harder things. But the last one that I was reading, I think I've just got to the age now where it's literally like Gone Girl, it is a bit ridiculous, and I can't be dealing with the, oh, will he, won't he, oh, I want him to kiss me. I just shut up and worry about more important things. I just couldn't be doing with it, so I gave the rest of those away, and the Series of Unfortunate Events I got on with even less. I didn't enjoy the first one, which I read last year for Dewey's 24-hour readathon. It was my least favourite read. In fact, all the other reads I read were really good, and that one just let the team down. Really let the team down. And I read the second one for Dewey's 24-hour readathon at the start of this year, and again I just hated it. It was just as bad as the first one. It was in fact exactly the same as the first one. So I gave the rest of the box set away because again I got them in a big box set from the charity shop. I think A Series of Unfortunate Events, I know they have such a big following, but I think for me, it may be because I didn't read them when I was a child, but they're just bad. They're just bad books, people. They just really didn't appeal to me. They were just so simplistic, and the language was just a bit irritating. And to be honest, I also found it all a bit far-fetched. I know that might be strange to say because they're kids' books and it's meant to be far-fetched and things, but if you're doing something far-fetched, it has to be believable within the realm of that world. So things can be as bizarre or crazy as you want them to be. It's your world, you can create what you want. But those things have to be believable within the realm that you've created, if that makes any sense at all. And for me, in a series of unfortunate events, the things were just not realistic in any realm, so I did not like them and gave them away. But yes, other than that, I am leaving series alone, as I say. Number 3, a classic that you're just not interested in. Now, I'm probably going to annoy a lot of people, especially Katie at Books and Things. So Katie, if you're watching, just block your ears and you won't have to hear this bad news. But I have kind of given up on Jane Austen, and especially Sense and Sensibility I've got on my shelves, and I just have no interest in reading it. I started it and it just didn't appeal to me, so I put it to the side and that was that. Now, as a writer, I have a lot of respect for Jane Austen. I think what she did for women writers is phenomenal, and there's no denying that she was an amazing and strong woman, and she's an inspiration to us all. But her writing just doesn't particularly appeal to me. I quite enjoyed Pride and Prejudice, but it wasn't exactly a favourite. I read Emma and it was okay. Sense and Sensibility, as I say, it just didn't appeal to me. I've also got Persuasion, which I am going to give a go because it's only small and I think the plot interests me a little bit more. But generally, the plots of Jane Austen's books don't really appeal to me. Now, controversial statement here, but I kind of feel as though they're all quite similar. I might be saying that naively. I have only read 2. But there just seems to be no real distinction between the plots of each of them. Like, obviously there are minor differences, but it's generally the same running theme, and I just failed to get behind her. I'm sorry, Jane. However, as I say, I do still respect her as a figure in literature. Majorly, I just don't particularly want to read her fiction. Number 4, any genres you never read. This is difficult for me because there's not particularly genres that I don't read, but there are genres that I'm less interested in and would be more sceptical about picking up. Now, YA would be my main one, but people who have been watching for a while will know that this year I set myself the task of reading 1 YA book a year in the attempt to get all the YA books off my bookshelves. So I feel kind of like a liar saying that I don't read YA because this year I am reading a YA a month. It's not an enjoyable experience for me. And frankly, it's the book I look forward to least every month, if that helps. But I am currently reading them, even though my purpose is to make it so that I don't have to read them anymore. I also wanted to mention sci-fi, but then I thought, well, I do read and enjoy dystopian fiction, and that ultimately fits into sci-fi. I think the trouble is that sci-fi is such a broad genre, but when I say that I don't read sci-fi, I mean like I don't read spacey sci-fi. And also romance I don't really read, but then at the same time I read books that involve love. But when I say romance, I mean cheesy love triangle-y happy ever after kind of romance. So it's kind of difficult because I think all genres branch off into aspects that I do read, but those are the 3 that I'm probably least inclined to pick up. The last question, number 5, is a book on yourself you'll probably never read. So I already spoke before about Sense and Sensibility. I don't have any real inclination to pick that up, but it is on my shelves. Other than that, I generally am quite good with myself now. Every few years I will go through and pick out the books I no longer want to read. The trouble is, because I have so many books on my shelf waiting to be read, when I buy a book it could be a few years before it gets read. So by the time I come to read it, it may no longer be something that interests me. That's just the way it goes. And I've got quite good at making myself give books away before reading them if they're just constantly being put back on my TBR. So I did have a clear out recently, so there's not too many books that don't interest me on my shelves anymore. But yes, so that's the tag. I'm not going to tag anyone because I wasn't tagged. But please, if you want to do this, feel free, and please link me down below so I can check out your videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!